Hello guys. Welcome to the gaming edition of Mind-Blowing Facts. In this video, we will talk about some fun and interesting facts about popular video games. But before I start this video, I wanted to tell you that all information in this video is collected from the fact site. They didn't sponsor me, but I wanted to give them a shout out. If you like fun and interesting facts like me, you should definitely visit the fact site. So, let's start. Number 1. A custom-made demo of SimCity 2000 is exhibited in the New York Museum of Modern Art. The Museum of Modern Art added SimCity 2000 to its halls in 2012, one of 12 games considered to be perfect heralds of applied design. Many of the games exhibited are playable to some degree. There's a demo of SimCity 2000, which was explicitly designed for the exhibition due to the sheer size of the game. Number 2. The dragon Paarthurnax in The Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim is voiced by the same man who voices Nintendo's Mario. That's right, both the leader of the Greybeards with the deep husky voice and Nintendo's most iconic character with his high-pitched Italian accent is voiced by Charles Martinet. Number 3. Gears of War 2 was featured in AMC's The Walking Dead. During a flashback in the final episode of Season 10 of The Walking Dead, the season's antagonist, Negan, can be seen playing Gears of War 2. While Negan is supposedly playing multiplayer with a couple of other players, keen-eyed viewers figured out that the gameplay footage was from a point in the game's campaign, specifically Act 2. Number 4. Left 4 Dead 2 was so popular that an expansion was released 11 years after the original launch date. As far as zombie survival games go, Left 4 Dead 2 found a formula for exciting yet refreshing gameplay that's incredibly hard to beat. Combine that with surprisingly good graphics for its time, and this is why 10 years from launch, it still had enough of a dedicated following to warrant an expansion. Valve, the producers of the game, were initially planning to create a next-gen sequel, but instead decided to make the Last Stand expansion to what is commonly referred to as the game that refuses to die. Number 5. Rockstar Games hired real-life gang members to voice background characters in GTA 5. In an attempt to add as much authenticity as possible to a game set in a fictional criminal underworld, the producers decided to shy away from goofy LA actors, who added little more than 2 dimensions to the characters they voiced. Quite a lot of the background characters are gangsters belonging to Latino and black gangs, so Rockstar Games got a guy to go around and hire genuine gangsters to voice the part. Many who saw their scripts threw them on the floor, as they weren't real enough, and they recorded their own version instead. Number 6. Half-Life was listed as the best-selling first-person shooter of all time, PC, in the 2008 Gamers edition of the Guinness Book of World Records. Not only did Half-Life completely redefine the PC first-person shooter genre, but it also had an incredibly mind-bending sci-fi story to back it up. It's no wonder that by 2008 it ended up selling more than 9.3 million copies at retail alone, being described by IGN at the time as the best shooter since the first Doom game. Many game critics and reviewers gave it a full 10 out of 10, with PC Gamer awarding it the title of Best PC Game Ever in 1999, 2001, and 2005. Number 7. The creators of PUBG tried to sue the makers of Fortnite. If you haven't played either of the Battle Royale giants, you'd be forgiven for thinking that they're pretty much the same game. Bluehole, the company behind PUBG, obviously thought the same as they attempted to sue Epic Games because Fortnite allegedly copied their Battle Royale game style. The case was eventually dropped. Number 8. There are multiple references in Batman Arkham City to ABC's hit TV series Lost. First up, did you know that the Joker in Batman Arkham City is voiced by none other than Mark Hamill of Star Wars fame? It turns out that Hamill was a massive fan of Lost, so he managed to sneak in a reference to his favorite show during one of the Joker's monologues. On top of this, if you wander around in the game long enough, you can hear some background crooks wondering out loud about whether the island in Lost was ever actually explained. Number 9. The studio behind Thief 2. The Metal Age ran out of money, so they donated their tools to the game's fans to expand upon the game. Despite their games being instant cult classics, Looking Glass Studios were hit by financial setback after setback and were forced to close down in 2000. It's thanks to the developers' generosity that the unofficial yet incredibly well-made expansion pack Thief 2X Shadows of the Metal Age was able to come to life. The game featured a range of new missions, cutscenes, more than 3,000 lines of dialogue, and an entirely new playable character. It took 5 years of hard work from more than 60 people to make the expansion a reality. Number 10. The initial designs for the Little Sisters in BioShock were absolutely horrifying. Originally referred to by the game studio as gatherers, the purpose of Little Sisters was to harvest a rare chemical called Adam from the corpses you see strewn around the place. Some of the first concepts for BioShock's gatherers were equally horrifying. For example, there was what appeared to be a Doberman in a wheelchair and a frog that had some sort of funnel sticking out of its butt. Fortunately, the game studio decided to go with downright creepy-looking little girls to make the player sympathize with them. Number 11. The background noises in Silent Hill 2 were randomized to keep players on the edge of their seats. In many games, having a keen ear and picking out sounds can mean the difference between life and death. The developers of Silent Hill 2 found that, by randomizing the order and timing that sounds like footsteps, breathing, the shattering of glass, and even pig squeals, players were kept on edge and were unable to predict what might come next. Number 12. God of War 2018 plays out like a movie that's been shot in one single take, with no cuts or loading screens. In the movie industry, it's pretty much impossible to film anything without taking multiple cuts, which has influenced how we put together stories not just in movies, but also in the vast majority of video games. The creators of God of War 2018 wanted to try something different to pull the player's focus more on Kratos himself and everything he was experiencing. By doing this, they were able to immerse players into the game at an entirely new level. Number 13. CounterStrike was initially a custom mod you could play in Half-Life. In 1999, Minlin and Jess Cliff created the first version of CounterStrike in a custom map in Half-Life. By 2000, the pair had gone through 5 beta releases and created a website, which drew enough attention from Half-Life's developers to buy them out and hire them to create a full version of CounterStrike. CounterStrike became one of the most influential first-person shooter games, developing many of the FPS game mechanics found in nearly all modern shooters. Number 14. Divinity: Original Sin 2 wasn't meant to be released with voice dialogue. One of the best things about DOS 2, if it's even possible to narrow it down to a few things, is the witty, yet refreshingly different dialogue you hear throughout the game. Sometimes it adds some insight into what you're doing. Sometimes it's your character being a sarcastic butt. Either way, it really hooks you into the game. Amazingly, it was only after the initial launch date was pushed back that DOS 2's developers made the call to introduce dialogue, going over millions of lines of scripts before finally releasing the game in 2017. Number 15. In 2012, the developers of Terraria tried to cancel further updates to the game. Lead developer Andrew Redigit Spinks announced in February 2012 that there would be no further updates to Terraria. He felt that it was time to move on from the game and wished to spend more time with his family. Fans didn't take this news lightly, but they didn't have to wait long for some good news. In September 2012, Terraria was ported to Xbox 360 and PS3. The renewed interest in the game led to many more updates to the PC version. I hope he got time to spend with his family. Number 16. XCOM: UFO Defense was nearly cancelled twice. The Gollop brothers first pitched their idea of the first XCOM game to Microprose back in 1991. Still, their initial game design document was so flawed and lacking in detail that the publishers almost rejected it, only giving the brothers a contract when they were able to explain the game in person. In 1993, Microprose was bought out by Spectrum Holobyte, who took one look at XCOM and told them to cancel the idea. Microprose ignored the official cancellation, kept the brothers working on the game, and successfully re-pitched the finished version to Spectrum in 1994. Number 17. Baldur's Gate was developed by BioWare, the same developer who would later make the Mass Effect series. BioWare was founded in 1995 by 3 recently graduated doctors who shared a passion for medicine, video games, and role-playing games. 3 years later, BioWare had released their second and most famous game, Baldur's Gate, for which they were able to obtain a Dungeons & Dragons license using the 2nd edition rules. It took so much time and effort to create Baldur's Gate that 2 of the 3 founders dropped medicine completely to focus entirely on their new careers as video game developers. Number 18. Released in 1991, Neverwinter Nights was the first successful MMORPG. Some may claim that a few previous games were the first MMORPGs, but Neverwinter Nights was the first to follow a similar format to what would later become the standard MMORPG format. When Neverwinter Nights first came out, it cost so much to connect to the internet that just playing 1 hour of the game would cost you $6. By 1995 the game had reached peak popularity and its servers could host up to 500 players at a time. Number 91. The creators of Rock Band were the same people who made the first two Guitar Hero games. Harmonix Music Systems were the brains behind both Guitar Hero 1 and 2. Still, they could not make other Guitar Hero games after the producer was bought out by Activision, and Harmonix themselves was bought out by MTV. It turns out that pairing Harmonix with MTV was the perfect combination. Harmonix had ideas lined up for a much more musically sophisticated game, while MTV had all the right connections in the music industry to land all the necessary record deals. Number 20. In the first 24 hours of its release, more than 1 million people logged into Xbox Live to play Halo 3. Halo 3 set a new precedent for the Halo series, raking in $300 million during the first week of sales. By the time the billionth online Halo 3 match had been played in 2009, only 800,000 games of Halo 2 had been played, despite it being released some 3 years beforehand. It's no wonder that Halo 3, the game that was ranked as the most wanted game in 2007, is considered one of the most hyped-up games in video game history. Number 21. Democracy activists used Animal Crossing: New Horizons to spread messages that criticized China's rule of Hong Kong. Tensions were exceptionally high in Hong Kong during the early months of 2020, with a simultaneous increase in pro-democracy protests and strict anti-protest measures. Although Animal Crossing wasn't released for sale in China, would-be players could access foreign copies of the game through various online sales platforms. Some pro-democracy activists were able to create custom anti-Chinese Communist Party messages on their in-game islands, which called for the freedom of Hong Kong. Number 22. The author of the Witcher novels tried to sue the developers of The Witcher 3 for more royalty payments. When CD Projekt Red first approached the author, Andrzej Sapkowski, he thought they would never make much money off the games. So Sapkowski pressed them to pay him up front for the rights to the Witcher series, instead of taking the more traditional percentage of total sales. It wasn't until 2018, after the wildfire success of The Witcher 3, that Sapkowski demanded that CD Projekt Red pay him an extra $16 million just for that title alone. The developers were surprisingly reasonable with the author, making a new private agreement in 2019 which seemed to leave both parties happy. Number 23. FIFA 11 was the first FIFA game to let you play as the goalkeeper. Released in late 2010, you were finally able to control all soccer players on the pitch in FIFA 11. While that in itself was pretty awesome, this update finally allowed the ability for teams of 11 players to work together and each play a fixed role in online games against other teams of 11. Number 24. The first gaming event in the US to be held at a national level was the Red Annihilation multiplayer Quake event in 1997. Believe it or not, the history of esports began back in 1997, when Quake created the mold for the future of competitive gaming. About 2,000 competitors from across the US participated, with 16 finalists battling it out in Atlanta, Georgia. The prize? Nothing other than a 1987 Ferrari 328 GTS convertible, something the winner wasn't even insured to drive. Number 25. There are 5 different forms that Masigno can take in the original Pokémon Game Boy games. If you played Pokémon Red or Blue back in the day, you almost certainly knew about the glitch that allowed you to catch Masigno, a glitched-out Pokémon. It turns out that Masigno could appear differently depending on the placing of certain letters in your character's name. The 5 forms that Masigno could take were the normal form, with a glitched-out sprite. There were 3 forms that took on the sprites of Kabutops, Aerodactyl, and the ghost from the Pokémon Tower. The final form is actually found in Pokémon Yellow and has a glitched-out red and yellow sprite. If this video does well, I will make another video about video games. That's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe my channel. Also press the notification bell to be the first one to watch fun and cool videos like this. Thanks for watching, and bye.